I bid you welcome.
I welcome you to my house.
Welcome to my house.
Welcome to my home.
Hello horror hounds, welcome to my horror house and welcome back to Jaws Scene by Scene, where we break down my favourite movie into the chapters as they appear on the DVD and Blu-ray. We've reached chapter 6, The Town Meeting. We've just seen poor little Alex Kintner eaten, and we cut straight to a copy of his mother's advert, the reward notice, $3,000 to the man or men who catch and kill the shark that killed Alex M. Kintner on Sunday, June 29th on the Amity Town beach. But even in the chatter in the background, we hear some question marks over this. Alex referred to as the boy who went missing, and someone saying, we don't even know if there's a shark around here. So it's still not the vast majority who have yet accepted this line that there is a shark who is dangerous in the waters off the beaches of Amity. And for why should the majority accept this when the ramifications of that are financially disastrous to them, and thus this town meeting is held in council chambers. But Mrs. Kintner has really started something. Newspaperman Harry Meadows, played by co-script writer Carl Gottlieb, tells Brody she's advertised not just in the Amity Gazette but a number of out-of-town papers. Meadows complicit in earlier chapters we see in persuading Brody to amend his death report from Chrissy Watkins to shark attack to some sort of boating accident. Says it's a small ad, I'll bury it as deep as I can. The ad's going to run on the back along with the grocery ads. And here is where Meadows exits stage left from Jaws the movie. He has a much more substantial role in the novel. Meadows is vital in hushing up the shark attack on Chrissy Watkins. In the novel, he investigates the mayor's ties to the mob, the mafia, and those reasons why Mayor Vaughan is so keen on keeping the beaches open. In the novel, it's Meadows himself who hires Matt Hooper and brings him to the island to help with the investigation into the shark. Poor Martin Brody is way out of his depth throughout the entire town meeting. The close-ups of him make him look like a little boy who is lost. Notice how at first he aligns himself with the townsfolk on their level in amongst that bustling group until the mayor calls upon him to speak and instructs him to cross the barricade, if you like, come behind the desks and stand with me and the officialdom and speak at the townsfolk. That shot too of Brody surrounded by those townsfolk, I love how it's composed. It looks like a Baroque painting. Not the lighting, but the composition certainly reminds me of something of Rembrandt. And all they want to know is, are you going to close the beaches? And he tells them, yes, he is, as if he's just told them all that he's going to take their puppy and have it put down. And then all control of the meeting is lost until an unseen hand in the background scratches down a chalkboard. Look again at some of the little thumbnail character shots, the reactions of groups of 2s and 3s to that scratching down the board. And again, those compositions remind me of Rembrandt painting compositions or Caravaggio's. And everyone turns to the source of the noise, and we get one of the greatest character introductions in all of cinema. Yet before he says a word, I always get a kick out of imagining him at the back of the chambers with a piece of chalk, beavering away at the chalkboard, drawing that little picture of the stick man being eaten by the shark just so he can make his point. And then for the next few minutes, it's the Robert Shaw show. He dominates. His character is supposed to dominate the room, dominate the conversation. For a character that you've never met before, all of a sudden, it's all about Robert Shaw, or the little bit of business he's doing, eating his cracker, the way he talks, the way he's so relaxed back into himself and his intonations. He's not conversing with these people. He is telling them what's on his mind, and they either listen or they don't. The camera pushes its way through the crowd to get closer to him, as if his personality is so magnetic it has to draw the camera towards him. There's twice during this monologue where the camera pushes in on him this way. And Brody, bless him, looks absolutely flummoxed for a film where in its second half, I believe, as much as it is about a shark, it is about different types of masculinity. When faced with this gruff, rough, very self-assured, completely different kind of masculinity, Brody is fairly powerless in the bright, immediate glare of what Quint brings to a meeting. I don't have any theatre experience, I've never been to an acting class, but I imagine the temptation to give this little speech here as an audition piece or a piece to camera or something in an acting class must be immense, and yet I can't help but think that Robert Shaw dominates not just the scene as it is, but this scene how anyone could possibly imagine it. I can't imagine saying those lines in any other way, with any other kind of rhythm, with any other kind of emphasis, without the pauses he gives them, the beat and the rhythm he gives those lines. You see them written down, you say them. You can only but slip into the way Robert Shaw says, "I value my neck a lot more than $3,000, Chief." And when Quint takes his leave, is there any way that you can say, "Mr. Mayor, Chief, ladies and gentlemen," any more of a way that sounds like, "I think you're all a bunch of idiots"? As Quint does take his leave, notice that he fills the entire left-hand side of the frame, and the right-hand side is very open and free, and there's a corridor out into the sunlight and the exit. And the counterpoint to that, Brody's reaction. Brody again fills the entire left-hand side of the screen, but the right-hand side is enclosed in, barred by that window. Hard vertical and horizontal lines. Brody ain't going nowhere. And the final mystery that Quint leaves us with, if you know the answer to this, please help me scratch this itch. Who is that grubby little down-at-heel dude with the dog that seems to traipse around after Quint for this scene and this scene alone? I adore him. I know nothing about him. I love the fact that he clearly works for Quint and pootles around after him. What's their history? What do you think's going on there? A quick shot of the beach closed signs going up, and then we move into the second half of the scene, which is Brody back at home that evening, flipping through his book about sharks. He's in his den or back room or something like that, surrounded by windows. Note how the light inside his den is very autumnal, orangey, the sign of safety in this movie, and yet vast outside cold blues of the ocean and danger. It's almost like he's in a sort of domestic shark cage, surrounded on all sides by the sea. Ellen sidles in with drinks and the immortal line, "Want to get drunk and fool around," which is just one of the sexiest things I've ever heard, and highlights again how natural and real their marriage feels, how in a very few number of scenes these two actors have managed to create a really believable, palpable relationship and marriage. It also highlights the difference between their marriage in the film and their marriage in the novel. I so much prefer the film. I prefer them getting on. I prefer them being happy and supporting one another, as opposed to in the book, it's just another line of division for Paul Martin Brody. Ellen in the novel comes from this islander class, this upper class. She is married some rungs down the ladder to be with Martin, and she's getting a little bit of a 7-year itch and certainly feeling it and missing the life she thinks she gave up by marrying him, leading her to an affair with Matt Hooper nonetheless in the book. Another character who's very different in the book than he is in the film. We'll be meeting Matt Hooper in a couple of chapters' time. A nice little bit of levity to end off the scene and leave us with a little bit of a joke with Sean and Michael sailing the boat, Dad Martin screaming for them to get out, him and Ellen having a little bit of a contretemps till she sees a picture in his book of a shark smashing up through the hull of a little sailing vessel and then taking his side, doing a complete 180 and yelling at the kids. Steven Spielberg, especially Steven Spielberg from the 70s and 80s, such a master at giving us these little thumbnail scenes of families who have little snipes and arguments with one another. It's not all daisy chains and rainbows. Families in Spielberg films from this time can clearly love one another and snipe and gripe at one another, all within the space of a single scene. So there you go, a scene of two halves, which will lead us into chapter 7, the shark and Sunday dinner, which is going to give us another little bit of light relief, but get our heart pumping a little bit and fixing the shark back in our minds. I hope you can join me then.